So, before I get this podcast well and truly started, I want to say thank you for your viewership. Thank you, my subscribers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This channel has almost 500,000 views now and over 17,000 hours of watch time. For somebody like me, who is a little nobody on a tiny corner of YouTube, I'm a little nobody. I'm not famous. I don't have a famous last name. I'm just the girl next door. I'm also quite unpopular. My views are not very popular. So to have racked up almost 500,000 lifetime views and over 17,000 hours of watch time, which is more important than the views actually. Watch time is more important than views on YouTube, but they don't tell you that. You learn later on when you become a YouTuber. And I'm hardly a YouTuber because I'm really a very tiny channel, but not bad. And you also have to take into account that I don't do live streams. I don't live stream for hours and hours and hours. I basically do very short videos. So I do appreciate your time, your effort. I do appreciate that you come here, you watch and you listen. Thank you very much for your time. I just wanted to say that before I get this podcast started. So the main topic of today's podcast is women going at other women in a negative way, which is not something that I enjoy. But I'm going to explore this as a conversation, as a podcast, and I'm going to use Megyn Kelly as my muse because she's becoming iconic for doing this. Megyn Kelly, as many of you will know, and for the people that don't, she was a host at Fox News for a while. Then she went from Fox News to NBC. She's very well spoken. She's a very attractive woman. She's in her mid-50s now, and she still looks great. Hopefully, I can still look a certain way when I get there. I'm quite far away from my 50s, but for somebody in her 50s, she looks absolutely fantastic still. And I used to think 50 was old, but I realize now that it's not old. As a child, I used to think a 50-year-old was very old, but obviously, I realize now that 50 is not old. When I do eventually get there, which is many, 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 many years from now, hopefully I can still see myself as, relevant. Anyway, she is relevant. A lot of people listen to Megyn Kelly. A lot of people like Megyn Kelly. She's very attractive. She's very well spoken. She's very good at presenting her content. What I'm seeing with a lot of people these days, because social media has become such a big thing, is that people are getting their own independent platforms now. They're going to independent media. And if they're not doing independent media, they go to News Nation. But people are realizing that they don't have to assign themselves with a network like Fox News or CNN or NBC, that they can actually get their own YouTube channel and put their opinions forth and voice their opinions. They can do so independently. Bill O'Reilly has done it. Ashley Banfield has done it. She has her own channel now. And Ashley Banfield is doing a very good coverage of the Diddy trial. Very good coverage. Nancy Grace now has her own independent channel. She's a former lawyer and a very good one. I'm not a huge fan of her as a person, but she's good at what she does. Nancy Grace I'm talking about. And Megyn Kelly has her own independent YouTube channel, and it has over 3 million subscribers. And Megyn Kelly is very good at what she does. I'm not a fan of Megyn Kelly. I don't like the woman, but I can still be objective and say she's very good at what she does. And she seems to have her claws out for other women these days. And the women she tends to target seem to be either biracial, black, or Latino women. I'm not saying she never goes after women of her own race. That's not what I'm saying, but she tends to go for minorities. So Kamala Harris, Lauren Sanchez, according to Megyn Kelly, is completely fake. And how dare she turn up at Trump's inauguration dressed in a low-cut top. She can't stand Lauren Sanchez. goes at her all the time. Michelle Obama, she doesn't care for. All the Obamas, so she claims. She claims the Obamas are no longer relevant, but yet keeps talking about them. And when she does, she gets quite a lot of views and watch time talking about the Obamas, who she claims are no longer relevant. Who else doesn't she like? Simone Biles, she's gone after. And lately, she's gone after JLO. Well, she's done this before. JLO appeared at a Pride event performing the other day. And JLO was wearing, well, a very revealing bodysuit. And JLO is just a few years, I think, older than Megyn Kelly. And Megyn Kelly had quite a few things to say about that. And I'm going to explore that in a minute. But why is she doing this? I mean, why do women... I'm all for female empowerment and bigging other women up and a sisterhood. And, you know, I've got many female inspirations. Gloria Gaynor, Mariah Carey, Nigella Lawson, Diana Ross, Tina Turner, Whitney Houston, Halle Berry, Madonna. The list goes on and on. And let's not forget Beyonce, Janet Jackson, Oprah Winfrey. The list goes on of the women that I aspire to be a semblance of and look up to. And I'm all for female empowerment, girl power and sisterhood. But why is it that in today's society, particularly with social media being as big and as powerful as it is, why is it the women constantly go after other women? Oh, how could I forget? I'm just eating a salad right now, so I hope you don't hear me chewing. There's another person that Megyn Kelly is not a fan of, and that is Meghan Markle, who she criticizes relentlessly. And, you know, she's not the only one. You know, no one seems to like Meghan Markle. But she does speak about Donald Trump like he's the second coming. And Melania is just the greatest thing since sliced bread for Megyn Kelly. I mean, seriously, literally, Megyn just thinks that Melania is just, you know, it's like Donald Trump is the second coming and Melania is just the greatest thing that's ever, you know, graced the face of this earth. And the interesting thing about that is that she criticizes other women for the clothes that they wear or revealing too much, when Melania Trump herself has revealed quite a lot when we look back at her history and some old photographs. But Megyn Kelly gives Melania a pass for all of that. But not when it comes to Jennifer Lopez. And I'll get to the Beyonce thing in a minute. Now, I don't completely disagree with the things that Megyn Kelly said about Jennifer Lopez wearing this ensemble, and I definitely have to show it to you because it's not something that you can describe. You have to see it for yourself. You know, Megyn Kelly was saying that Jennifer Lopez is old. Basically, that's what she was saying. You know, she's old news. She's at a certain age now. She's past it. She's no longer the it girl. I disagree with that. I think Jennifer Lopez is still popular, still relevant, still loved. But I understand what Megyn Kelly is saying. And she was saying, you know, why does she need to dress this way? It's not appropriate. It's not age appropriate. And, you know, she should just realize now that she's past her time and she's getting older and we don't need to see this. And she was a lot more explicit in her language and more verbally facile in her language. I'm keeping this advertiser friendly. But, you know, basically her argument was like, why do we need to see JLo's whiskers? But, you know, this is not, you know, when I saw Jennifer Lopez in this outfit, I wasn't completely surprised. As Jennifer Lopez, what is she known for? Her derriere, her pronounced derriere. She's a Latino woman. She's curvy. And obviously when we watch the Olympics and swimming and gymnastics and all of that kind of stuff, you know, people are wearing leotard and very, you know, quite tight or revealing things. So, you know, this is not something that people are not used to seeing. But I do understand what Megyn Kelly was saying about how narrow that part of the leotard was cut. And, you know, she was saying, you know, this is just, Why is JLo doing this? Why do we need to see this? She's past it. She doesn't need to be doing this anymore. Give it up. She needs to retire gracefully. That's basically the gist of what Meghan Markle was saying. Not Meghan Markle, Megyn Kelly, not Meghan Markle. Two Megans, confusing. So Megyn Kelly was saying, JLo needs to give it up now. She's past it. And I'm not completely disagreeing with everything that Megyn Kelly was saying. I agree with some of it. I don't agree with all of it. I think this is probably taking it a little bit too far. I am a fan of JLo. She's not perfect. She's made mistakes, but I am a fan of JLo. But I'm all for, like I said, female empowerment. And why does she need to be clawing at this woman? I mean, Jennifer Lopez has never done anything to her, never said anything bad about her. Why is Megyn Kelly comes across like a self-righteous Republican right-wing sort of like virtue signaling pearl clutching type of person. That's how she comes across for me. And I know, and I don't, I'm not a fan of Megyn Kelly. I don't particularly like her, but I understand her appeal. And sometimes she's very entertaining. I watch her myself, so she has to be entertaining to some degree, because I'm not going to watch anyone that's boring. But, why can't women just be happy for other women? At the end of the day, whether you like Jennifer Lopez or not, she's a very successful woman. She's made millions, and a lot of people say she's neither a great singer or a great dancer. She's made millions from movies, from music. She's contributed to society. She's a productive person. She's not hurting anybody. She's at a Pride event having fun. What is the deal here? Another person, another female who Megyn Kelly has had her claws out for is the one and only Beyonce. Probably one of the top 3 most successful women of our generation. Very few people get to the levels or heights of success that Beyonce has. Yeah, there's Taylor Swift, there's Mariah Carey, there's Madonna, there's, the late great Whitney Houston. Yeah, there are a lot of very successful female artists, but very few make it to Beyonce's level of success. And Beyonce did a country album called Cowboy Carter, and she's currently on a country album world tour. And she was recently in England. I think she still might be. And she is one of the richest, most successful, most celebrated women in music. I don't think she's ever had any album or single that's ever flopped. Now, you may argue, or someone may argue, that she's not talented or she's not a great singer. People don't have to agree that she's the greatest thing that ever walked the face of the earth. People can have different opinions. I personally think that she's very, very talented and a great entertainer. She's a all-round entertainer, like Michael Jackson was. Yes, I put her on that level. There's Michael Jackson and there's everybody else. But I put her in that category. Almost, not quite. No one quite makes it to the Michael Jackson category. But there's Michael Jackson and there's everybody else. For me, personally, other people put Beatles or whoever. But very, very few people make it and are as successful as Beyonce. She's the most awarded artist in all of Grammy history. She's had 8 #1 albums. She is probably the most awarded artist in history. Probably. She certainly is at the Grammys. Now, she used to miss out on the big awards like the Record of the Year and Album of the Year, and get like the R&B sections or the other categories that are not as important. But she finally won in the Best Album category for Cowboy Carter, and I think she won another Grammy as well. So she finally has a Best Album of the Year, award. And she was completely ignored by the country music award shows, which is fine. You know, she doesn't need recognition. She has everything, basically, and the Bayhive are always behind her. But according to Megyn Kelly, Beyonce, and this is the gist of what she's saying about Beyonce and her country music links. Beyonce, basically, according to Megyn Kelly, didn't need to stick her big foot into country music, which was a very, very successful genre without Beyonce, which I fundamentally agree with. Country music doesn't need Beyonce. You know, country music has enough stars, enough singers, enough greatness. Country music doesn't need Beyonce. Yes, I completely agree with you, Megyn Kelly, on that. However, why get your claws out for Beyonce because Beyonce has decided to take a new direction? I mean, she's from Texas. If Texas ain't country, I don't know what is. Okay? Would she have said that? Would Megyn Kelly have said that if somebody like, say, Taylor Swift, well, who is already in country music, but I wouldn't say that her music is just country. But Megyn Kelly wouldn't have said that if Taylor Swift decided to do a full-on country album. And most people consider Taylor Swift to be country, but she's not from Louisiana. She's not from Texas. She certainly ain't from Memphis or Tennessee or any of these places. She's not from the home of country music. She's from Philadelphia, or she's from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia. She's from Pennsylvania. Beyonce was born and raised in Texas. And if, like I said, if that ain't country, I don't know what is. But she knows she has her claws out for Beyonce for taking a new direction. And what has Beyonce actually done to her? Nothing. And there's a part in Beyonce's concert where she plays a clip of Megyn Kelly criticizing her for dipping her toe into country music. And Megyn Kelly had something to say about that on her platform. Like, how dare Beyonce even play that clip? And that Beyonce, according to Megyn Kelly, can't even take a sliver of criticism. I don't think that was the point that Beyonce was trying to make with that clip. But hey, there was no need to claw at Beyonce for deciding to make country music because she's from the country, unlike Taylor Swift, who's actually from Pennsylvania.